Morning. Another day, another road test. Today, we're doing it on the new Samsung Galaxy Watch 4 and also the Samsung Galaxy Watch 4 Classic. Now, if you're not familiar, I'm going to use this watch throughout the day. We're going to talk about some of the features I like and don't like. We'll test some of the fitness features. I'll also check in on the battery by the end of the video, and we'll do that while exploring a new hood. But first things first. So there's a new coffee shop in my hood that everyone keeps telling me about, so I figured before we kind of go on like a more of our adventure, let's try it out. And this is called Babacool, and apparently it launched in 2014 in Fort Greene, which is another neighborhood that we'll have to check out at some point. But this location in Williamsburg just opened last month, but it's really cute. Has like this cute little outdoor spot. They even have petanque, which I've never played, but it looks a lot like bocce. Someone told me though that you like toss the balls, they're lighter. You don't roll them like you do in bocce. I don't know, I have to try it sometime. But I was told it has good food and good coffee. Coffee, check. So firstly, there are two watches, and they're basically the same in almost every way. Really, the styling is different. So before we actually had the Samsung Galaxy Watch Active line and then the Samsung Galaxy Watch line. What's happened is the Active line is now becoming the Watch, which is the more minimalistic of the two, and the Watch line is now the Watch Classic. But instead of them being completely different models, they're just kind of variants of the same model. And I think that's way smarter, honestly. There should be like one watch and then you just choose your styling, which is what basically they've done. Now the Classic adds a physical bezel instead of the virtual one that we have on the regular watch, which is the same as from the Active. But it's also a bit larger, heavier, and it comes in stainless steel instead of the aluminum case of the Watch 4, so it's slightly more durable. All of the models, though, are thinner than their last generation. Personally, I prefer the look of the minimalistic Watch 4, but like my buddy Jaime Rivera from Pocket Now and Michael Fisher from Mr. Mobile both love the Classic, and they hate this one. So, preference. Now each model comes in two sizes, but they're different. The Watch 4 comes in 40 millimeters in silver, black, and pink gold, and 44 millimeters in silver, black, and green. The Watch Classic comes in 42 millimeters in black and silver, and 46 millimeters in black and silver as well. Now both support 20 millimeter quick release straps, so you can find those online. So long as they say 20 millimeter and they're quick release, you can use those on either of these watches. Now I have small wrists, but I got the larger, the 44 millimeter Watch 4. And I have to say, I think it's the perfect size. I'm glad I didn't go with the smaller one. I will say though that the strap that comes with it is the medium and large compared to the small and medium strap, and I'm on the very last notch. It fits, it's perfect, but just something for everybody to keep in mind when you're trying to decide on the sizes. You might need to get another strap if you go for the larger size and you have smaller wrists, or vice versa. Both watches also come in LTE varieties. They're essentially just $50 more to the cost of any of them. So regardless of the model and the size, $50 more bucks gets you LTE. And while we're here in this stylish environment, let's talk about our stylish sponsor, Thread. Now, Thread is a website that after you answer a few simple questions, helps you find clothes personalized to your style, your size, and your budget from a ton of well-known clothing brands. After you sign up, you'll receive tips tailored to you and even have access to a stylist for any questions that you might have. If you don't like anything or need to change sizes, you have up to 100 days to return anything with free shipping back to Thread. As someone who would like to dress better, Thread has been super helpful in holding my hand and making it easier than I thought it would be. Seriously, I need help. For new US users that sign up through my link below, you get $30 off any order over $130 or more, and any new UK users get 20% off any order over £75 or more. Lastly, anyone who signs up and places an order through my link will be entered for a chance to win $300. Thanks to Thread for sponsoring this video. Alright, so we'll talk about the fitness of this watch a little later, but I have an appointment right now for something I want to test, which is a new feature on the watch, which is the body composition.
So most important is that your heels go on the heel electrodes and wherever the rest of your foot falls.
This is way fancier than this.
Yeah, I know.
Mine doesn't care where you
feels
stand.
really legit, I know. You're going to type in your height.
Ish.
Hey,
So
but as
like
long as you're consistent
quarter of an
with
inch,
these
it's fine.
measurements,
It's fine.
rounding up.
Yeah, we're rounding up. It's fine. Oh, grab it.
Place your thumbs in the oval electrode. The test is completed.
See, I don't like this result. They're way higher than I want to know.
Let's see what the watch says.
Okay.
16.9% body fat.
Hey, okay.
What does that one say?
That's on 16.
16? Wow. Okay, and I rushed back so that we could use my scale that I usually use and I've been using for years, and that's like got a good data set there for us to use. But I rushed back because I want to make sure that nothing has changed. Like I didn't eat or drink anything new, because that can actually affect how these things are measured on all of these devices, because it's using electrical impedance, and if your stomach is full of liquid, you're gonna have a different electrical impedance than if it's not. And also if you're sweating or you just worked out, all of those things affect it. So you should always use this at the exact same time, and normally for my scale, I do it as soon as I wake up before I eat or drink anything, and that just keeps everything consistent. But here are the results for all three of those devices, and let's go over them a little. So this is the body composition data from the InBody 270 device that my local gym had, and according to it, my body fat mass is 22.8 pounds of my 141.8 pounds, so my body fat percentage is 16.07%. My Withings scale that I usually use says I'm 11.7% body fat, and the Watch 4 says that I'm 16.1%. So assuming that $6,000 InBody scanner is the most accurate, that tells us that the watch is actually pretty darn close. My scale at home, even if I like the number way better, is pretty off. Now, the reason that you would want to track this metric in the first place is to determine how much fat versus muscle you are carrying, and then track the progress depending on which of those metrics you are trying to adjust, as opposed to just looking at weight, which doesn't tell you as much about your fitness on its own. For example, a 180-pound person with 10% body fat is going to look and perform very differently than a 180-pound person with 25%, even though they're the same weight. Now, truthfully, unless you're doing weightlifting competitively, the actual body fat percentage isn't terribly important. The more important thing is how it is changing over time. So consistency is arguably more important, as you just want to make sure whatever you are doing is bringing your body fat percentage down, if that's your goal. So if it isn't, then you can adjust your diet and exercise accordingly. And while the Watch 4 got very close to the same accuracy on this measurement as the professional system, which is impressive, it's not very consistent. Sometimes off by as much as 4%, which is a big difference, really. So I'm initially impressed with the accuracy, but I'll have to keep doing this every day for a while to get enough data really to see if it becomes more consistent and therefore truly useful to me. I do, though, have to give Samsung credit for even putting this in a watch. And if I can get it to be more consistent, it's actually a feature that I kind of love. All right, and with that, let's head to the park. All right, now we're gonna head to Prospect Park. It's the most popular, large park in Brooklyn. And we're gonna take a bike to get there. Now, we can test the auto tracking. So long as you do anything for 10 minutes, whether it's walking or cycling or running or whatever, it'll automatically, retroactively start tracking that workout. So 10 minutes in, it'll go, hey, I'm tracking, and you'll get the data from the last 10 minutes and then it'll continue. And while you've already seen the watch auto tracking my walking, it doesn't apparently auto track cycling. The Watch Active 2 did, the Watch Active 4 for some reason won't. No idea why. I asked Samsung and nobody could give me an answer, so maybe it's coming later in an update. Maybe. But still, let's test to see how it does cycling tracking, but we'll just tell it that we're gonna get on a bike.
In 1,000 feet, turn left onto Whip Avenue.
And this is Grand Army Plaza. Originally called Prospect Park Plaza and designed in 1867, it's basically like a collection of different sites at the northern sort of main entrance to Prospect Park. Now, it was renamed to Grand Army Plaza in 1926 to commemorate the 60th anniversary of the foundation of the Grand Army of the Republic, a fraternal organization comprised of the veterans of the Union Army who fought in the American Revolution. Which made sense, because this location here is actually the location of the first battle of the American Revolution, called the Battle of Long Island, which is the giant long island that Brooklyn is a part of. Right now, though, it's just a good place to cool off after I totally underestimated how hot that ride would be. But speaking of the cycling tracking, at least when you turn it on, it does actually give you a lot of data. And that route is accurate. That is the route I took. Those numbers are where I paused to adjust my camera. But cleverly, the watch did pause the workout automatically, and it recorded the stops. All right, while we're cooling off though, let's quickly do a walkthrough of the UI. Now, first up, we have the home screen, which is the watch face. You can tap and hold on this for other watch faces. You can tap customize underneath them to alter them slightly, kind of what we're all familiar with on most smartwatches nowadays. You can also, though, use the wheel to navigate. So either the digital wheel on the Watch 4 or the physical one on the Classic. They both function in the same way. We only have two buttons. We have the home button at the top, which if you tap, bring you back to that watch face screen no matter what app you're in on the watch. If you tap and hold it, you'll get Bixby. And no, I at least haven't found a way to change it to anyone but Bixby. And then we have the back button at the bottom, which you can tap to go back one screen as opposed to all the way back to the home screen. And if you tap and hold that, you'll get Samsung Pay. And also, yes, I can't see a way to change that to Google Pay. Even though you can download and install Google Pay, I couldn't find a way to set it to this button. You have to just kind of open it manually. Now, if you swipe from the left, you'll get your notifications. You can swipe up to dismiss them or tap them to interact with them. And depending on what they are, they'll have different actions underneath that you can do. And swiping from the right will get you to your widgets. So you have things like your fitness, your most common workouts, and you can customize those, obviously. Body composition that we tested earlier, ones for sleep, weather, your schedule. And you can also customize these by tapping the last tile or widget to add different ones. And of course, as you install other apps on the watch, you'll get different ones in here that are able to be added. Swiping down from the top of the watch will give you your quick actions. So these are kind of like the quick actions on your Android phone. Very similar. Things like do not disturb, turning on sleep mode. You can swipe and get extra ones. And of course, you can also customize these as well. And you can swipe up from the bottom to get to all of the apps that are installed on the watch. I don't really use apps on my watch very much. If there's anything that take me more than a couple of seconds, it's much easier for me to just take out my phone, is how I feel about it at least. But I can see if you wanted to like track the run with a specific running app or your bike rides, for example, having that you can install on the watch, turn it on and have it start tracking from the watch, and now you have all of that data in your preferred app and software and cloud and everything else. That's kind of cool. Now, honestly, as anyone coming from a Tizen watch, like a Samsung Galaxy watch before this, like I was, it feels very similar. Like you won't really notice much if you're not looking for it. But there is something different. Every time I come to Prospect Park, I think of a photo that I have hanging above my bar in my apartment. It's a photo of my grandfather and my great-grandfather on horses somewhere in this park. I wish I could one day recreate it with my father somehow. I just think that would be cool. And you can actually still ride horses in the park, but I don't think that you can like free ride them. And also, it'd probably be really hard to find this exact spot if this path like on it even still exists. Maybe one day. So this is a food festival that actually started in a park by my apartment in Williamsburg, but now during the summer they do it on Saturdays there and they do it on Sundays here in Prospect Park. But Smorgasburg, as it's called, which is a play on the fact that it's a smorgasbord of vendors, and it was in Williamsburg, has now apparently expanded to a bunch of different places. Now it is a bit expensive for what you are getting, but you're kind of paying for the fact that you have access to a ton of, and frankly, they are good vendors, all in one small location. Also, beer and wine. Now though, let's talk about that one thing that's making this watch not like the older Galaxy watches. And that's the fact that this is the first watch to come out that is running the new Wear OS 3, which was co-developed apparently by Google and Samsung. So the idea is that they took some of the best things from Tizen and the best things from Wear OS and combined them together. Now the watch is also running One UI 3 on top. And yes, I understand that that's a little confusing, but it's not without precedent. Basically, just think of it like Wear OS is Android in this case, which runs on a bunch of different manufacturers' devices. And then they all put their own skin on top, like One UI on Samsung devices, for example. The idea is that there will be other watches that will come out with Wear OS 3 on them, and maybe even some that'll have like vanilla or stock Wear OS 3, which is what we assume we're seeing when Google is showing off an interface for Wear OS. But who knows? And then all of those manufacturers just put their own UI layer on top. And the idea behind this is really just that like it helps developers a ton because it limits fragmentation, right? So you can create an app for Wear OS, and current Wear OS apps will also work. And it'll work on all Wear OS devices, but now also Samsung. And it really does kind of feel like it's a win-win for both parties. Wear OS developers now get to include Samsung in their potential reach for their apps. And Samsung, on the other side of this, gets more apps, like instantly. Instead of developers making one version of their app for Tizen and only targeting Samsung, and one version for Wear OS and only targeting that, the difference will be if enough people start creating apps now. We'll see. I will say though, so far, again, as somebody who came from a Tizen watch, I don't notice much of a difference. So far, I will say it does feel like it is the best of both worlds. But of course, there is a bit of controversy as to what will work on this watch when you use a Samsung device versus when you don't. Let's talk about that next.
So I'm gonna be having dinner later, and so of course I got something light. Truffle fries and like aioli. Probably gonna regret this. At least we're doing a lot of walking. It's a nice thing about this location of Smorgasburg. You have to walk a lot to get to it, and you gotta walk a lot to get out. So like, you know, cancels out.
I'm in Crown Heights, and it's a neighborhood adjacent to the park. And right now, I'm at a place called Franklin Park. It's a bar that I haven't been to in maybe 6 years. My sister and a good friend of ours that's like another sister both used to work at this bar. My friend was even the head chef here for a little bit. I remember at one point cooking on the line with her. I was flipping burgers at Dutch Boy Burger, which is the restaurant kind of attached to this, and it was named Dutch Boy Burger because it took the space of a Dutch Boy paint shop. But now it seems, and I didn't know this until I just showed up today, Dutch Boy Burger is no more, and they're both just called Franklin Park. Probably was getting a little confusing for people because it had two names. I get it. Okay, now let's talk about the controversy around this watch and the Wear OS and all that. And the concern right now is that certain features only will work if you're using a Samsung phone, and they won't work on a non-Samsung phone. Well, eagle-eyed viewers of the video will already notice that I'm using a Pixel 5a during this video just to test that. So let's talk about some of the features that do work. Body composition, as we saw earlier, works no problem. We also have sleep tracking, which I'll show you a bit more later, but it now also does blood oxygen, snoring if you have the phone next to your bed, because it can detect you using a microphone. And it also checks your sleep heart rate every minute instead of 30 minutes, so it's a bit more accurate. All of that works. The continuous heart rate monitoring also works. Stress, blood oxygen, steps obviously, and GPS tracking for workouts. So essentially, all of the health features except for one. The ECG. No one asked Samsung why that was the case. They couldn't really give me an answer. Said it had something to do with regulations, and if anyone remembers, the ECG was a feature that actually came late to even the Active Watch 2 because they were waiting for approval from the US government for the app. If I'm using a Samsung phone, which I also have tested with the watch, the ECG works just fine. If I'm not, it doesn't. It literally tells me to download an app, and that app is only available on the Galaxy Store, not the Play Store. So when it tries to open it just can't, because the Play Store is the only store that's on non-Samsung phones. Even if you try to like sideload the Galaxy Store, it still just doesn't work. And for whatever reason, Samsung has stopped it from working on other devices. And sure, maybe it could be regulations in some way, like that app needs to be like certified on each device. I don't know. Again, I asked Samsung, they couldn't give me an answer either, so maybe it'll come later. I don't know. But that is the one feature that does not work. Now, to use all of these features, you will for the most part need to use Samsung Health. As someone who's used Galaxy Watches before, that's fine with me, as all of my data is already in there. And frankly, I've always just kind of felt it did a much better job than Google Fit. If you want to use Google Fit though, you can. You just download the Google Fit app on the phone and the watch, and then you use that to track your workouts, etc. The issue is that even though the watch will track everything I mentioned, Fit doesn't seem to know how to store it. So sleep data is missing for me, body composition, it doesn't know what to do with that, and the list goes on. If all you care about are steps and workout tracking, you'll be okay, I think. But for all the more detailed stuff, you really kind of have to use Samsung Health. The question really is, will all of this change? Will, down the road, Google Fit be able to import a lot more different types of data? Will it become more seamless at it? And at the moment, there's no way to know that.
Okay, it's getting dark now, so let's hop back on a bike and head home.
Okay, back at the apartment, and let's talk about sleep tracking first, of which it does a good job. It was pretty accurate about like when I got up and when I went back to sleep. It tracks everything automatically, like you don't have to like tell it you're going to bed, it just figures it out on its own, so that's good. Again though, that is in Samsung Health. Google Fit, while it has that feature, won't automatically pull it
from the watch. The only way I was able to do that was by using an app called Health Sync, and it then took my Samsung Health data and synced it with Google Fit in the back end. I don't know. But even with sleep tracking on, the battery lasted me a full 2 days. From like waking up, tracking my sleep over one night, all the next day, tracking my sleep the next night, and then it died on that third day about halfway through, which is pretty good. That's very comparable to the Samsung Galaxy Watch Active 2 that I'm used to using. Now, as I said, it feels very similar to a Galaxy Watch that came before it. And I mean that in a good way. Also, the battery life is comparable and the tracking is as well, minus the auto tracking of the cycling. Still don't understand that, but that's the only thing that doesn't feel comparable. And now we have the addition of a bit more apps. Now, not a lot of them, but a bit more. I personally like the styling, and as I've been mentioning, it does also work with Fit and Samsung Health, but honestly, you're gonna have to use Samsung Health if you wanna get the most out of the watch, at least for now. Maybe that will change down the road. So hopefully all of that together means more apps, better integration, and more choice, but we'll see. Now, I will, of course, leave a link below to the best price that I could find on both of the watches, so you can check that out there. And also, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments what you thought about it, about the format, kind of doing these a bit vloggy-like, which has kind of been my thing lately. You guys seem to enjoy it. I enjoy making it. I hope you still do. Also, head over to my Instagram. It's @theunlocker to follow me there and see other videos that I make now that I'm doing some on Instagram only, as well as like behind the scenes of these videos, photos taken on different phones, so we can compare them there as well. Appreciate it. If you like this video though, please subscribe or share it. Greatly appreciate it. Check out the rest of the channel. If you like what you see there, please subscribe and ding the bell next to the word subscribe so you actually get notified when I do new videos. As always though, regardless, thanks for watching.